Well, so we are continuing today in Mishna Yomi. We find ourselves in Moed Katan, Perek Gimel. Mishnah is Vav through Zayin. Mishnah is 6 and 7. So Mishnah Vav says as follows: Rabbi Eliezer Omer Mishachara Beis Hamikdash. Since the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Atzeres Kishabis. Shavuos has the status like Shabbos. Now remember, again, in the previous Mishnah we learned that when it comes to Abelos, when it comes to Shiva, so Shabbos is Ola ve'eno mafsik. It counts as part of the Shiva, and it does not disrupt the Shiva count. It does not disrupt Shiva. Yom Tov, on the other hand, really essentially concludes Shiva, and of course does not count, therefore, towards the tally of Shiva. So Rabbi Eliezer says, when the Beis Hamikdash stood, so when you had Shavuos, interestingly enough, even after the Yom Tov of Shavuos, one had 7 days afterwards to be able to bring their karbanos. But in the aftermath of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, so obviously those 7 days of Tashlumin, those 7 makeup days, are no longer in effect. And therefore Rabbi Eliezer says that Shavuos has the status of Shabbos when it comes to Avelos, which means that it would not go ahead and conclude Shiva, but rather, again, the external displays would be lifted and it would be counted towards the tally of Shiva. Rabbi Gamliel Omer, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippurim kiregalim. Rabbi Gamliel says that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur have the status of regalim, namely that halacha l'maisa they would stop Shiva and do not count towards the tally of Shiva. The Chachamim say, Lo k'divrei zeh v'lo k'divrei zeh. The halacha follows neither Rabbi Eliezer nor Rabbi Gamliel, rather Ella Atzeres Kirigalim. Rather, on the first point, they say Shavuos is just like every other Yom Tov, and therefore, again, if a person Chas v'Shalom is sitting Shiva, with the arrival of Shavuos, Shavuos effectively concludes the Shiva observance, assuming that one began during Shavuos. And furthermore, these Chacham say Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippurim kishabbos. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur have the status of Shabbos, namely that they will not conclude Shiva, but rather, again, they will count towards the tally of Shiva. So the truth is, halacha l'maisa, the way we paskin is that, of course, Shavuos is counted as a Yom Tov, and therefore, again, like a regal, and therefore, if one began to observe Shiva prior to Shavuos, the arrival of Shavuos will bring Shiva to an end. And we also paskin that both Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur have the status of a Yom Tov as well, as a regal as well, and not as Shabbos. Therefore, again, if one began observing Shiva prior to Rosh Hashanah, prior to Yom Kippur, the arrival of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur will effectively end the Shiva. That's Mishnah above. Mishnah Zayin. Mishnah 7. Ein korin v'lo cholzin ve'ein mavrin ela krovov shomes. So the Mishnah over here is describing what happens if halacha l'maisa, there is a levaya, there is a funeral on Chalamayid. So we do not go ahead and do kriya, we don't tear our clothing. V'lo cholzin. Cholzin was the practice of bearing the shoulder. This was also a display of mourning during the times of the Mishnah. Ve'ein mavrin ela amita zekufa. Mavrin refers to the Sudas Havra, which is the mourner's meal which they eat after the Kvura. Ela Karov of Shalmes. So again, interestingly enough, to say a little bit differently, it is only the immediate relatives of the deceased who do Kriya, who bear the shoulder, and who eat the Sudas Havra. Everyone else is not permitted to do so. In other words, whereas during the rest of the year, if one is present at a levaya, one has the right to participate in mourning practices. On Chalamayid, it is only the immediate family who have the right to engage in mourning practices. Furthermore, ve'in mavrin ela al mita zakufa. Furthermore, again, when the mourners eat the Sudas Havra, the meal of consolation, upon coming back from the cemetery, they eat on an upright bed. It used to be the practice in the times of the Mishnah that they would overturn the beds in the home, including the beds which they would dine on, as a display of mourning. However, again, when we're talking about a Sudas Havra meal of consolation that occurs on Chalamayid, they only eat on upright beds. Ein molichin lebeis adam, lo betavlo velo beis kutlo velo bekanon ella besalim. So this is actually very interesting. This is a side halacha, and the side halacha is that in general, when we go ahead and we bring the Sudas Havra, the meal of consolation, to the house of the mourner, so the Mishnah says we don't go ahead and bring it on a tavla. Tavla is an expensive tray. Iskutla is a silver bowl. Kanon is a fancy basket. Rather, ela b'salim. Salim means plain willow baskets. The idea over here is, the Gemara explains that it used to be that the wealthy would bring the meal of consolation to the mourners in very expensive utensils. And of course, it embarrassed and humiliated those who did not have. Therefore, Chazal instituted that when it comes to mourning, or when it comes to delivering the meal of consolation, everyone brings it in the same simple willow baskets. The idea is, you see this, by the way, the same idea that Chazal instituted with how we bury the dead. Everyone buries the dead in the same way, the same plain shroud, the same plain casket. On a deeper level, death is the great equalizer. Doesn't make a difference if you're very wealthy and powerful or if you're very poor and simple, right? Death occurs to everyone. So because death is the great equalizer, because death is the common experience of man, Chazal really made it that the mourning practices are supposed to be streamlined as well, so that everyone, no matter what their station in life, mourns the same way. So the Mishnah ends off by saying, "Ve'in omrim berchas avelim b'moed." We do not recite berchas avelim. Berchas avelim, the Gemara explains, was a special bracha that they used to say to the mourners after the levaya. Baruch menachem avelim. This is bracha. We don't say this bracha today, but we do not recite this bracha in Chol Hamoed. Aval omdim b'shura umenachemim upochunes arabim. But ultimately, after the burial, we stand in two lines. We offer words of comfort, but immediately after that, we go ahead and disperse the public. In other words, we tell people go home, because remember again, even though you could do a kavura on Chol Hamoed, you could do a burial on Chol Hamoed, but Shiva does not begin until after Chol Hamoed. So we'll allow people to stand in lines and to go ahead and give some level of comfort, but right after they go ahead and issue, or utter some basic words of comfort, ultimately, again, we disperse them and tell them to go home. All right, we'll stop over here for today. Shkayach everyone, looking forward to finishing Masechas Moed Katan and Meretz Hashem tomorrow.